Well, welcome everyone to the Owensboro Board of Commissioners regular meeting, April 4, 2023. At this time, I would like to ask the City Clerk, Beth Davis, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Pam Smithwright.
Here.
Commissioner Larry Maglinger.
Here.
Mayor Tom Watson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mark Castlin.
Here.
Commissioner Bob Glenn.
Here. Thank you. At this time, if you're able to stand, please stand for the invocation and the pledge by Commissioner Bob Glenn.
Bow your heads with me, if you will. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the blessings of living in this wonderful and beautiful community of Owensboro, Kentucky, this shining city on a river. Lord, we have so many blessings to thank you for. Most abundantly, we thank you for the protection we've experienced from these terrible storms that have ravaged our neighbors in Tennessee, other cities in Kentucky and Indiana. Lord, as this cycle continues, please protect everyone, including our community. Lord, we also want to protect the most innocent among us from gun violence. Lord, the tragedy in Nashville has torn at our hearts. We extend blessings and love to those who lost their precious loved ones in that event. Lord, keep our community safe. Keep our people safe. Lord, finally, we want to celebrate and acknowledge the awe we have that you would sacrifice your one and only Son on Calvary to preserve humanity and wipe away our sins. And as we celebrate Easter, let us keep that in our hearts. Finally, tonight as we meet, I want to bless all of our city employees of every level, the great work they do, protect them and keep them safe. And finally, Lord, help us as a governing body to make decisions pleasing unto you. In Jesus' name, amen. And now the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. Next item on the agenda is a presentation by Special Olympics. Is Kim Johnson here?
Yes.
Oh, that must be you.
I'm ready.
Please state your name and address for the clerk's record, please.
All right. Kim Johnson, 352 Hill Avenue, Owensboro. Thank you very much for letting us come tonight and share with you information about our local Special Olympics program. Owensboro is becoming known as a sports tourism, a sports city, and we would like to share some information about some outstanding athletes that you might not be familiar with here in Owensboro. Special Olympics Kentucky is sports training and competition. We are a year-round sports training program. We provide some type of training or competition every week of the year. We might take off the week of Christmas and New Year. We're building communities, we have healthy initiatives, and we are changing lives in the city of Owensboro and across the state of Kentucky. Now, you may wonder, who do we serve? We serve individuals with intellectual disabilities. We start at the age of 8. Our current oldest athlete is 84. So we have a wide range of athletes that are continuing to compete in Special Olympics. Special Olympics in Kentucky serves over 10,000 athletes in 15 different sports. There are 640 competitive events a year in our state, and we also have national and international competitions, which we'll be sharing with you very quickly in a few moments. Division is based on skills, and we have real competition in our sports. Right now in Davis County, we are serving over 200 registered athletes. We also serve athletes from surrounding counties that come to Owensboro. We have athletes driving as long as 2 hours to come and compete in sports training competition here in Owensboro. We want to share very quickly the different sports that are offered and the numbers that we're serving, and then just a little more information. I'm going to introduce my husband, Jeff Johnson, who's going to quickly go through the sports that we offer here. He's one of our coaches.
Okay, I've been coaching for almost 30 years now, and we've got 6 basketball teams, 71 athletes that compete in that. We've got teams that have competed on the national level in basketball. We've had 2 completely Owensboro teams to compete in Seattle, Washington, and Ames, Iowa. And we've got 3 athletes that are going next weekend to Baltimore, Maryland to compete with the University of Louisville in the unified competition. We've got cheerleading. We've got 8 people that are participating in that right now. Aquatics, there's 22 athletes in that. We've got a meet coming up in next week.
Yeah,
next
April 29th.
29th. our first time hosting an aquatics event. Normally we have to travel to Louisville, to Northern Kentucky, to Richmond for our athletes to compete in competition there, but we've got a good chance to host the program here. And we've got 4 softball teams, 65 players. Probably we'll have more teams this year. We've got more interest that are people wanting to come and play. We've got 65 athletes currently doing bowling, and we've just started flag football this year. We've got 8 athletes that are participating in that, with another team scheduled to start next year. We've got another volunteer for that. Basketball is held, the regional is held in Bowling Green every year. There's 37 teams that come from Owensboro all the way to Paducah in competing for basketball. Softball's also, there's 18 teams there in Paducah, which I said will grow again. Since COVID, the numbers have continued to go up. And flag football, which is in Paducah. We would love to be able to partner with the city to get some of these events here so that we can showcase what a great facility that we have. Many people come here and they're impressed by things, but we are limited sometimes with the access to some of the facilities. Track and field, we have 180 athletes there, 150 with bowling, what I said, and aquatics. Area 2, as my wife said, goes from Paducah all the way to Breckinridge County, to Grayson, and down to Bowling Green and Russellville. So it's a large area and a lot of people coming around for that. State events. Basketball is held and bowling are held in Louisville each year. Track and field and aquatics, which aquatics is being moved to Louisville this year. It has been in Richmond. That's one that I think state may be looking for another venue to do on a regular basis, because they've outgrown the venue at Richmond and moving to Louisville, because there's a lot of parents that are wanting to be involved and to see that. Softball state is held in Bowling Green, and flag football is held in Lexington, which we had softball many years ago in Owensboro, but we had some issues with some support there. National games, like I said, we've had teams to compete, 2 basketball teams to compete in basketball in Ames, Iowa, and Seattle, Washington. We had some ladies to join with a group from Bowling Green to compete in Nebraska. We've also had athletes to compete in world games. We've had some to go to China to compete, Ireland, North Carolina, California, and Florida. Like I said, we have got some great athletes, and this city loves to celebrate when we've got somebody that's competing on a state level, and never to say that someone's competing for a gold medal in the nationals and world games.
Some other programs that we have are United Champion Schools. Jeff just mentioned that we have some athletes that are competing as a part of a University of Louisville team at the University of Maryland next week. We also are currently working with Kentucky Wesleyan to see if we can bring that Unified Champion program to the local area. We also have an athlete leader program where our athletes are going to learn how to be leaders in our community, including sports and healthy initiatives. We also have athletes who have been to Washington, D.C. To lobby for the rights for individuals with disabilities. We have a lot of community involvement with KWC. We recently just visited the Thoroughbreds, the River Dogs. We want to partner with our sports teams in the local community. And we're big on health initiatives. So not only are we looking at that sports training and competition, but how can we be healthy individuals in our community? And remember, I said we're looking at athletes beginning at the age of 8. And right now, our oldest athlete is 84. So we feel that the healthy initiatives are very important, and that's something that we would like to bring to the local community as well. Special Olympics is the opportunity, or gives the opportunity for our athletes to build confidence, to improve self-esteem, improve health, develop teamwork. The friendships that are developed are just incredible, and the family support system is very important to our athletes as well. We do have 3 athletes that are here with us, 3 of our 200-plus athletes. I'd like for them to stand real quick just so you can see some of our outstanding athletes here in the community. So So we're just asking you, A, to be informed about what Special Olympics is, and as you continue to look at facilities and opportunities for sports competition here in the community, we would like to be a part of that. As I said, because our athletes are living, training, they are working in our community, and we want them to continue to be a part of all of the different aspects of the community. Thank you very much for your time. If anyone has spare time, and I'm sure none of you do, but if you do, I know a couple of you are scheduled to come on April the 22nd to our area games, our track and field event. We'll be having opening ceremonies that day at 10 o'clock in the morning. And if you want to see some great competition happening, I would encourage you to come to a Special Olympics event and see that. It is located, my husband's telling me, it's located at Owensboro Middle School on April the 22nd. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those. Otherwise, thank you very much for the opportunity to share information about our program and something that we're very passionate about, and we want to continue to provide those opportunities for our athletes in the community and our surrounding communities.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. I'm just curious as to how you're financed with all that traveling.
That is 100. We are 100% nonprofit. We do fundraising. We are supported by the community, so we do local fundraising and then work with our businesses to help support that. And it is a very expensive venture when you start sending an entire basketball team to Seattle, Washington. So we're 100% nonprofit.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody understood that.
Yes.
Anything else from the dais? Let's see. Maglinger?
I want to thank you for bringing this to our attention. I had no clue that it was this much participation in what you do. And so thank you for sharing that with us.
And I will add just one more quick thing, and I apologize, and I will sit down. My husband said you've got less than 10 minutes, so you've got to be quick, and you know how you are when you start talking about Special Olympics. But I would like to highlight the Owensboro Public Schools have been an incredible partner. That's where we do most of our sports training and competition. We really want to grow that with our City Parks Department and the other sports facilities here in the community. Bowling Green Parks Department, they actually have added a paid position for Special Olympics, and so it's actually run through their Parks Department. I'm not asking for that because we want to continue to do it because it's our lifelong passion to continue to do the program. But we would like to work with the city parks to help access those facilities. Thank you all very much.
Wait, Commissioner
Yes,
Castle?
I'm sorry.
I was blessed to have neighbors that had a special needs child, Sam Winstead.
Yes, he's one of our
Anyway,
swimmers.
Yes,
And,
Jeff and Lori just, they did everything they could to keep him active. And he and my daughter Jill were like that growing up. And also, you were talking about the schools. One of the things, he went to Burns Middle School, and I got to go to the Special Olympics Christmas program, and they just knocked it out of the park, I tell you.
We do have very many talented individuals. Not only are they involved in sports, but many of our athletes, like Adrienne, she's a dancer. So we have a lot of individuals that are also involved in the arts in our community as well.
She's shaking her head no.
She was a dancer. All right. Well, thank you very, very much.
Keep up the good work.
I can tell you, I participated in the Paralympics for about 10 years, and it's amazing what athletes can do when they have certain types of disabilities or some impairment. Because the drive there is unbelievable to succeed.
And I will bust one myth for you. Sometimes people say, "Oh, Special Olympics athletes, and they do have good sportsmanship," but they're like, they just care about, the opportunity to be out there. I'm like, no, they want to win, and they prefer a medal over a ribbon every single time.
Thank you, Mr. and Ms. Johnson. Appreciate you. Another good reason. We got a great community. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a proclamation. I'll read from the dais. The proclamation is National Public Safety Telecommunications Week. The City of Owensboro and all its citizens, all its retirees, and all its employees present this proclamation to you. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services. Whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Owensboro-Davis County Emergency Communications Center, and whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services, whereas the public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio and providing them with information and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of Owensboro-Davis County 911 Dispatch Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion and understanding and professionalism during the performance of their job in this past year, therefore I, Thomas Hart Watson, Mayor of the City of Owensboro, do hereby proclaim April 9 through the 15th, 2023 as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Owensboro, and in honor of men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our city safe. So at this time, I'd like Paul Ney to come forward, and all of us are going to come down and take a picture with you, Paul. We're going to grip and grin it, okay? All right. Say hello to Shaylee.
Thank you so much.
Take the podium, okay?
Thank you, sir. Mayor, Commissioners, Paul Nave, Owensboro-Davis County 911 Director. Just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to accept this proclamation. Just the last storm, just so you know that we received over 600 calls during the duration of the call that we processed and got people emergency assistance. When you wake up every day, you don't think today's the day I'm going to need 911, but when you do, we have professional, trained people that are there to make a difference in your life every day. We make a positive difference. If you have a theft, we send police. If you have a medical emergency, we send police, law, and fire. Depends on the situation. But we make a difference in people's lives every day in a positive aspect. I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I'm proud of my staff, guys. I'm so proud of what they do. They work minimum staffing almost every day and triage those calls, and they do a phenomenal job, and I'm proud of what they do. So I appreciate you.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate you. Okay, next item on the agenda is Barbara and my real good friend Cindy Sheriff on the Alzheimer's Association awareness. State your name and address for the record.
Cindy Sheriff, 4302 Spring Bank Drive, Owensboro, Kentucky.
Thank you.
So I'm here tonight to talk to you about Alzheimer's disease and dementia, and hopefully increase some of your awareness and talk just a little bit about some of the programs that we bring to the community. A few years ago, my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. And like anything else, any challenge I've ever faced in life, I decided to learn as much about it as I could so I could help my dad. And what I learned was that it is chronic and it is terminal and no one has ever survived. So I couldn't fix it, but I wanted to, couldn't fix it. So I decided that I was going to take everything that I learned about this disease and make his journey as easy as possible for him. I lost Dad in 2018, and shortly thereafter decided I wanted to volunteer. I wanted to give back to the community, give back as a representative of the Alzheimer's Association in his honor. So I've been doing that for several years now, and I've learned so much and have enjoyed the opportunity to bring education. So basically, the Alzheimer's Association is a national organization. I'm a representative of the Greater Kentucky and Southern Indiana chapter, and you'll see on the screen here our mission and our vision. Our vision is to eventually have a world without Alzheimer's and other dementia. Now, I'm also a policy advocate for the association, and had the opportunity to go to D.C. last year and met with some of the scientists and researchers, and I am happy to say that we are close to finding the cause of this disease and therefore a cure. Now, it might be 10 years, it might be 20 years, but I do sincerely believe that it will happen. A lot of people get Alzheimer's and dementia confused. They think they're the same thing, and they're very similar, but I think this slide illustrates a good way of explaining it. Dementia is the overall category, so think of an umbrella, and then underneath that there's different types of dementia, which includes Alzheimer's. But other types of dementia would include Lewy bodies, vascular dementia, some types of Parkinson's disease, and some other things. But Alzheimer's disease actually accounts for almost 80% of the types of dementia that is out there. So dementia is really any type of brain disorder. What happens when someone has dementia or has Alzheimer's disease is the electrical circuits in the brain are short-circuited, and they stop sending messages back and forth to the person's brain. So basically, literally, the brain begins to shrink. And I noticed with my dad, not only while his brain was shrinking, his world was shrinking, because he didn't have the cognitive abilities to do things that he normally did. He stopped playing golf. He stopped teaching Sunday school. He stopped playing games with the grandkids like he used to. And that was because he could not come up cognitively with the thoughts and the rules that were associated with that event. So who is at risk for Alzheimer's disease? Well, basically everybody in this room, because everybody in this room has one thing in common. We have a brain, right? I thought that might come up. But if you have a brain, you are at risk for Alzheimer's. Now, there are things that can increase your risk. The number one risk for Alzheimer's disease is age. Once you're 65 or older, that increases every decade. A lot of people think other things put you at higher risk, but age is number one. Family history. There are genes associated with Alzheimer's disease, two types. One's a risk gene, one's a deterministic gene. If you have the deterministic gene, you will get Alzheimer's disease, but it's very, very rare. If you have the risk gene, that just means you're at a higher risk. So family history, heredity play into it, history of head injuries. Also, if you're female, if you're African American, you're also at a higher risk.
Thanks.
Unfortunately, yes.
Is there a test?
A test to determine that's a great question, because years ago, people thought the only way to make that diagnosis is through an autopsy. But that's no longer true. We've developed lots of cognitive risk tests that your physician, it could be a neurologist, can come up with. We can also do MRIs and PET scans to measure the amyloid plaque buildup in the brain. And that's what is the common denominator in all brains with Alzheimer's disease, is that plaque buildup. But what's interesting, everybody who has Alzheimer's has plaque buildup in their brain, but not everybody who has plaque buildup gets Alzheimer's. So there's lots of unanswered questions there. When it comes to caregiving, like I said, I put my professional career on pause to take care of my dad, and I'll always tell people it was the hardest job I ever loved. But right now, we've got 11 million Americans that are providing 16 billion hours of unpaid care, and that equates to a lot of dollars. The Alzheimer's Association is just a wonderful resource for any caregiver or any family who's dealing with this. You'll see the helpline there, our website. That helpline is actually answered 24/7 by master's level clinicians who can help you with whatever situation that you're experiencing. It also can provide local resources and referrals. On our website, you'll see the list of a lot of our different community resource finders, our navigator, and lots of resources there. What I want to really focus a little bit on is to make everyone aware of the education that we bring to the community. Any opportunity we have to talk to any civic organization, church, any group at all, we want to, because even though it is a terminal situation, there are things that we can educate caregivers and family members to make that journey easier. We can teach effective communication strategies. We can help you understand what you need to do from a legal perspective. So these are 7 of the community education programs that we provide, and we never charge anything for this. So if you are aware of a group or any organization that would be interested in this, please reach out to us, because we want to help everybody make this journey as easy as possible for their loved ones. We do have fundraisers throughout the year. You might be familiar with the Walk to End Alzheimer's. We also have the Longest Day event. That is the summer solstice, so it's the longest day, where we can raise money for Alzheimer's research. I mentioned advocacy. This is another volunteer program that I do, but if you're interested, there's some information on their website that you can learn more about this opportunity. So the Alzheimer's Association is here. We can help. This is a horrible disease. It's getting worse and worse because we're aging more and more. You know, we're living longer. We're also, I've talked to several employers who are dealing with this in the workplace now because our workforce is aging as well. So it's a very difficult situation, but there are things that we can help anyone with who's dealing with this. So I've also brought some brochures. One of the programs that I really like to do is called the 10 Warning Signs of Alzheimer's Disease, because as we get old, you ever walked into your pantry and think, what did I come in here for? Yeah, we all do that. And it was after my experience with Dad, every time I would do that, I thought, oh, is this how it started with Dad? So one of the programs that we offer is called the 10 Warning Signs, and this helps everyone understand what is normal aging for a brain and what is dementia-based aging for a brain. And it's really very informative and helpful, and I brought up a brochure if anyone is interested. So I know I've given you a lot of information in a short period of time, so any questions?
Questions from the dais? Commissioner Glenn?
I just have one question. Having heard you earlier today, you said that if somebody needs to be in a facility, there's no federal program to cover the cost. Did I hear that right earlier? So
right.
As part of the advocacy for the organization, is that an issue you're addressing with Congress and saying, look, you have got to have a system, because this would bankrupt families? I mean,
it does, and we're meeting with CMS and trying to come up with some coverage. We've also got a bill that will pay caregivers, because I had to leave my job. Now, fortunately, I was able to do that, but a lot of families don't have that luxury. So we are working that way. Now, there's always a caveat to most things. Veterans do have benefits that will cover long-term care facilities. Also, Medicare will cover it for 90 days, and it's usually in an approved facility. But most memory care units do not, once that Medicare runs out, it's self-pay. Now, many times what families have to do, which is really sad, they have to drain down every asset that person has so they qualify for Medicaid, and then Medicaid will cover the care, but it's usually in a facility that is only approved by Medicaid. So it is a problem.
And my last question.
Oh, I thought you said you just have one.
No, I guess I miscounted, sorry. So my other question is, Wellington Park, I believe, is a facility. Is that the only facility in Owensboro that you're aware of?
They have a memory care unit and also now we've got Calumet Trace and Cedarhurst.
Okay.
I don't think Calumet has opened yet, but they, on the continuum of care, there's independent living, assisted living, and memory care, and then typical nursing home, and then there's skilled nursing facilities. The memory care unit is a locked facility where all the staff are trained in dealing with these brain disorders. But at this point, unless you're a veteran or you have long-term care, personal insurance, it's usually self-pay.
And thank you, Mayor.
So how do you get your family member, your loved one, to admit they're going down that road?
Well, that's one of the programs we do. So, but we do have a program called Effective Communication Strategies, and we talk about how to communicate in the early stage, the middle stage, and the late stage. The time to have that discussion is in the early stage, and we can train people in certain ways to pose a question without being accusatory, to making them feel shamed or embarrassed. At the end of the day, sometimes people will not admit it. My dad was one of those. He never would admit that he had Alzheimer's disease. And after a while, I just told my sister and brother, let's stop pressing the issue. We know he's got it. He knows he's got it. It's the elephant in the room. But he never would admit it. But the best thing that you can do is to get that person to admit it in that early stage, because that's when you can talk about end-of-life decisions. You can get their thoughts on their advance directives. You can also talk to them about how they want to be treated, what kind of facility they want to be. Some families will even take the person to look at different facilities. So early diagnosis is very critical for that reason, but also there's other diseases that can have the same symptoms as Alzheimer's disease, so you need to get a doctor to rule out some of those other diseases.
So are there pharmaceuticals available for the early onset?
There are some pharmaceuticals that are available. Now, a lot of people think that they delay or slow down the progression of the disease, but they really don't. All they do is help you squeeze some better days. So that's kind of what
Say that again?
They help the person squeeze out better days
Okay.
of brain activity. Recently, there are some drugs that are showing promise in minimizing the plaque buildup in the brain that I talked about. They are still experimental. The FDA has approved them, but one of our challenges is recently a CMS or Medicare said they won't cover the reimbursement form, and they're about $20,000 a year.
Mm.
But it's the first time we've had any drug ever that treats what's going on in the brain.
Well, thank you very much. I'm not going to say I'm not depressed, but it's, I mean, it's something we got to be in front of instead of behind of, and there's no question about that. So God bless you for what you're doing, and thank you for your time.
Glad to do it, and I'll leave some of these brochures on the stand here if anybody wants
You can
one.
put them over there on the, you can bring them here.
Yeah, I like them.
Okay.
I'll give them to our city clerk, and she'll pass them out for us, or yourself.
Anybody else want one?
Yeah, just give them to Beth, and she'll
Okay.
pass them out for us.
If you need any more, let me know. That should be enough. Thanks.
Thanks, Ann. All right. Okay, we'll move on to business portion of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to consider the approval of the minutes March 21st, 2023.
So
Let me-
moved.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 5B, consider these board appointments, please. Civil Service Commission, reappoint Blake Edge and Joanna Kendall to a 3-year term effective April the 9th, 2023. The Northwest Neighborhood Alliance, reappoint David Curry, Justin Klein, Rafe Buckner, Marshall Coleman, and Sheila Crow to a 2-year term effective April 18, 2023. And Owensboro Davis County Industrial Development Authority Board of Directors, reappoint Ed Ray to a 4-year term effective April 20th, 2023. I'll entertain a motion to approve these board appointments.
So moved.
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Item 6, ordinance, second reading, there are none. Item 7, ordinance, first reading, there will be no vote. Ms. Davis. 7A, I think.
Yes. Ordinance 10-2023, an ordinance closing an alley right-of-way located behind 1805 and 1811 West 9th Street in the city of Owensboro, Kentucky. Introduced and publicly read on first reading this 4th day of April, 2023.
I'll entertain a motion to approve this ordinance. Could I have a second, please?
Second?
We already did that? Well, it says vote right there.
First reading.
That's okay. Never mind. City manager, you want to do a presentation?
I'm happy to, Mayor. Thank you. This is first reading of an ordinance closing an alley north of 1805 and 1811 West 9th Street. The alley to be closed runs from Conway to Poindexter. Owners of all properties touching the alley have provided their written consent for this closure, and RWRA will retain an easement within the closed alley to access their infrastructure. And as our typical map here looks like, you can see the area shaded in red or hatched in red is what we plan to close or has been requested to close. You can see West 9th Street there on the bottom, and then Conway to the right and Poindexter to the left. There are only 2 different property owners own the 3 properties touching the alley. One of them initiated the closure and the other provided consent.
Thank you. Any other further discussion from the dais? Thank you. Item 7B, Ms. Davis.
Ordinance 11-2023, an ordinance amending Chapter 19, Article 1, Section 19-5 of the Owensboro Municipal Code entitled Park Hours, which changes the hours of operation for Smothers Park to 5 a.m. to 12:30 a.m., and amending Chapter 19, Article 1, Section 19-6 of the Owensboro Municipal Code entitled Restricted Activities to update language concerning required training for individuals who have been granted a variance to sell alcoholic beverages on city property. Introduced and publicly read on first reading this 4th day of April, 2023.
Thank you. City manager.
Thank you, Mayor. This is first reading of an ordinance making 2 changes to the city's parks ordinance. One change is the hours for Smothers Park. When the city invested in the wonderful improvements to the park, it was expected that Smothers would serve as a primary gathering place for the community. As a result, by ordinance, Smothers Park is currently open 24 hours a day. As anticipated, the park is heavily utilized by patrons and it hosts frequent events. However, few, if any, of these events happen overnight. In order to best ensure the park remains in the excellent condition as expected by the community, this ordinance reduces the hours for the park to be open from 5 a.m. until 12:30 a.m. We will still have the mechanism to have events or other activities overnight by an approved event permit. So if Relay for Life, for example, wanted to have a 12-hour, 24-hour fundraiser, we could certainly accommodate events such as that. The second change for the ordinance relates to requirements that any person serving alcoholic beverages have TIPS training. TIPS training stood for Training for Intervention Procedures, and it was basically server training for those who would serve alcohol. The state no longer offers TIPS training, so the ordinance has been changed to more general language, stating that any appropriate training is dictated by the Kentucky Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. So this change would accommodate any future programs or trainings the state might offer.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I just have one quick question. City manager, I know we want to protect the park, so do we have any cameras with an vision shot of the park that would help us identify? I know when Mayor Payne was here, we had some damage done to the park in its early evolution, and the cameras help catch the perpetrators.
We do have cameras in the park.
Okay, and then quick follow-up, 12:30, what's magical between midnight and 12:30? What's the 30-minute difference?
That's a good question. I think that was just the consensus among law enforcement and the Parks Department. Was there any specific rationale for 12:30, or is that just give a little bit of time and is based on past precedent and activities?
I believe it's just based on past activities.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you, Mayor.
Okay, item 8A, please. Ms. Davis.
Municipal Order 17-2023, a municipal order authorizing and directing the mayor to execute a supplemental agreement to the July 16, 2015 Memorandum of Agreement between the City of Owensboro and OMU, by which OMU shall pay the city an amount averaging $55,000 per year for 10 years in addition to its existing transfers to the city for economic development purposes. Introduced and publicly read for approval on one reading this 4th day of April, 2023.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve this. Could I have a second, please?
Second?
City Manager, would you like to discuss this?
Yes, sir. OMU expressed interest in being more involved in economic development efforts. So this municipal order approves an agreement with OMU, which entails the utility providing $55,000 a year for 10 years. The funds must be deposited in the city's economic development fund, so use of the funds is limited to that purpose. It also requires the city to match those funds, which of course we provide well more than that, but they wanted to be a good partner in future development in our community.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8B, please.
Municipal Order 18-2023, a municipal order repealing in its entirety Municipal Order 48-2022, and authorizing and directing the mayor to execute an updated memorandum of agreement between the City of Owensboro and Davis County Fiscal Court, funding a juvenile drug and mental health court program for 4 years, and designating Davis County Public Schools as the program's supervising agency and fiscal agent. Introduced and publicly read for approval on one reading this 4th day of April, 2023.
I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. Second. City Manager?
At the December 6th meeting, the Board of Commissioners approved a 4-year agreement with the county for juvenile drug and mental health court. Historically, the county attorney's office has administered this program. However, after discussions among involved parties at the Judicial Center, a request has been made to change the fiscal agents for the program. So this new agreement for your consideration today moves administration of the drug court program from the county attorney's office and locates it in Davis County Public Schools. The financial terms for the program remain the same at a commitment of $75,000 a year for 4 years.
Us and fiscal court, correct?
That's correct. It is matched by the fiscal court. City and county share the cost.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Commissioner Smith-Wright.
Point of order, Mayor.
Sure.
Did you ask for a motion?
Yes,
And no one gave the motion, he just seconded it. Is that correct?
I think that's probably right.
So that's not correct.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve this.
There
Could I
we
have a
go.
second, please?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Hmm. 9A, consider personnel appointments. City Manager.
Thank you. Tonight we have the following probationary status appointments. James Todd Napier, probationary full-time non-civil service appointment to firefighter with the fire department effective April 9th, contingent upon successful completion of all post-offer pre-employment requirements. Michael Nichols, Kelton Boyland, probationary full-time non-civil service appointments to officer with the police department effective April 24th, contingent upon successful completion of all post-offer pre-employment requirements. And then for regular status, Anthony Small, regular full-time non-civil service appointment to labor maintenance helper with the street department effective March 21st. Jason D. or J.D. Winkler, regular full-time non-civil service appointment to deputy chief of police with the police department effective April 10th. Jason Lee, regular full-time non-civil service appointment to lieutenant with the police department effective April 10th. And Michael Staples, regular full-time non-civil service appointment to major with the police department effective April 10th.
Would someone please make a motion to approve these?
Motion?
Could I have a second, please?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Mayor would point out just briefly, Major Staples is with us today in lieu of chief, so I'd like to
Hey,
acknowledge
Major
him.
Staples. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. 9B, City Manager comment.
Just one item, Mayor, if you would acknowledge Abby Shelton. I'd like her to give a quick presentation on the applications we've been accepting for federal funds we received.
Is that 300 of them I signed today?
That's probably it.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Abby Shelton, Community Development Director for the City of Owensboro. In 2020, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development released funding to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. Owensboro received 2 rounds of funding totaling $531,849. In 2020, Owensboro initiated 2 grants, one for 3 months of emergency rental assistance, and the second was for $2,500 for small business payments. We recently received our second round of funding grant agreements. Upon this initiated funding, we were able to open the rental assistance payments and open the business payments from March 20th through the 31st for the rental and March 20th through April 3rd for the business. To date, we've received 157 applications with over $244,000 in requests. We are still working to secure monthly rent payments from a few of those grantees. In the business side, we received 16 applications with 12 that have been approved for $30,000 in assistance. The others did not qualify due to household income. These were all a first-come, first-served basis. We will be able to pay for $222,000 of the rental requests, and the remaining $30,000 will go to the business. Again, the total remaining CARES Act CDBG CV funding that we received this round was $252,187,000. This will leave approximately $30,000 of those rental payments unfunded.
Any questions? No questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Next item on the agenda, communication from elected officials. Commissioner Gillian.
Here, the last name, sorry. Just 2 things. I happened to visit Oak Grove Casino owned by Churchill Downs, and it's a huge facility. But their smoking is literally, you walk from one area to another and there's just, it's no smoking, no smoking, no walls, no, so. But it's a beautiful facility and, it's large, but I also didn't see a whole lot of employees given the size of the facility, so that's one. The second is that as we were driving back, Hopkinsville's downtown area was absolutely decimated. My wife and I were going to stop for dinner on the way back. We are so fortunate and so lucky to have such great first responders here if something did happen. And so again, I want to thank all of our city staff, all of our first responders, including the county, because I know if something happened, they would be right there. But we dodged a bullet because several cities around us had significant straight line wind damage. So that's it.
Mr. Smith-Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to wish everyone a happy Easter and a safe spring break. Thank you.
Mr. Castleton.
Thank you, Mayor. Caught me off guard there.
Trying to.
I was pretty busy this past week. I got to go to Lieutenant Governor Coleman came to town and presented several $1 million to the area, one being OPD and the other to OMU. They both received monies, and OPD's was for, I believe, their body cams and also their protective vest. Also, Girls Inc. had a luncheon award this past week, and I want to give a shout out to Marcy Kegel Carpenter, who was the winner of the Athena Award on that. And also New Beginnings had their awards and over at the Bluegrass Center. And also wanted to give a shout out to Rafe Buckner in the Northwest Alliance neighborhood. They just always stay so busy and so active in the community and do so much for the community. That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Magler.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to wish everybody a happy Easter, and that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. My comments tonight are, I'm going to read a proclamation from the city of Owensboro as it pertains to Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas the federal fiscal year 2021, 3.9 million reports were made to Child Protective Services. Whereas child abuse and neglect is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions require input and action from everyone. And whereas our children are our most valuable resources and will shape the future of Owensboro, and whereas child abuse can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. Whereas protective factors are conditions that reduce or eliminate risk and promote the social, emotional, developmental, and well-being of children. And whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. Whereas we acknowledge that we must work together as a community to increase the awareness about child abuse and continue to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. Now, therefore, I, Thomas H. Watson, Mayor of the City of Owensboro, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Owensboro, and urge all citizens to recognize this month by dedicating ourselves to the task of improving the quality of life for all the children and families. Okay. At this time, we'll have open public forum. Members of the audience are invited to address the City Commission on any matter of public concern that was not on tonight's agenda. Comments are limited to issues within the scope and responsibility of this commission. Commission meetings are held to conduct city business for the benefit of Owensboro citizens and taxpayers. Excuse me. At this time, anyone who wishes to address the City Commission, please make their way to the podium to be recognized. Speakers must state their name and address for the clerk's record and limit their remarks to 3 minutes or less. Since the item is not on the agenda, no response is required from city staff or the commission. Who's up first? Hi again.
It's me again.
You again.
Terry Modal, 1731 McCulloch Avenue in Owensboro. This is my third appearance here. First of all, I want to thank those who have come on behalf of Alzheimer's and also Special Olympics and other important events that are important to us in the city here, important to families. I'm here to talk once again about the River Park Center and the Ghostlight Lounge with the drag queen shows, and I know it was on their agenda to have one again last evening. You know, we talk about the importance of raising our children, and children are precious commodities and so on and so forth. But I think we need to look at morality as one of the tools in the proper way of raising our children. And I guess I know there's no response required, but I guess I would just like to open by asking, has there been any attempts made to stop the immoral and indecent drag queen shows taking place at the Ghostlight Lounge? Would anybody care to comment on that? I guess I take that as a no then.
I'll make a comment. The state, thank you, Mayor. The state is currently trying to pass rulings to limit the drag shows within any government building. And, you know, I think they're fighting an uphill battle personally. It's a First Amendment right, but we shall see how that proceeds and go with whatever the state regulates us. Thank you.
Well, in another comment I'd like to make, if we continue to allow this type of immorality to take place, especially in such close proximity to a children's playground, then I guess what would be the next thing that we would allow? I know what you said about the state, but I think there can be measures taken locally as well within our own community to put a stop to this type of thing. We're feeding our young children. Many of you have children, grandchildren, maybe great-grandchildren growing up in the area, and it's, you know, the Bible says this type of activity is an abomination in the sight of God. I appreciated your opening prayer, sir, and especially the fact that you ended it in the name of Jesus, which we don't hear a lot of anymore. But these are the reasons we have the problems in our nation that we do. The immoral things that have been allowed ever since Roe versus Wade, and it just went downhill from there. I'm here representing the Christian community. Christians need to take a stand. If you're here tonight and you're a Christian, you need to take a stand for these type of activities that are going on, because it's perverting the minds of people, and it gets out to the young people. And I think we ought to be concerned about the future of our community, not just with community events, but also with moral events.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak tonight?
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having me. Happy Resurrection Week, everybody.
Could you state your name and
My
address?
name is Robert Morris, 727 Maple Avenue. And I would like to talk about the smoking ordinance a little bit. I think everybody deserves, constitutionally, their freedom to be safe, just like the Christians deserve safety at their church, just like the smokers deserve to be safe, the gamblers, you know, whatever. I don't smoke or drink or gamble or dress up, but I have done all four in one night. During Halloween, I dressed up as my sister. But, you know, I think everybody deserves.
That qualifies.
Yeah, I think everybody deserves that freedom. And I want to talk about the smokers. I think the place should be given. Now, my family's been devastated by gambling. So I think the polka dotted elephant is the gambling. But per law, it's going to happen. But I think they should have the smoking area. If they don't have the smoking area, they're going to be out on the front porch, and this is what's going to happen. They're going to just flick it out. They're going to be smoking everywhere, and give them a safe place to do it. I don't know if you've been close to one of those ashtrays. When they catch on fire, it's like a dumpster fire. I don't know if you've been downwind from one of those, but I think they should be given the smoking area. I mean, I dislike smoking. Secondhand smoke is horrible. I don't like being around it. But they're going to do it. And if they've got a space that's filtered, it's its own HVAC system, I don't see why you wouldn't want that to happen. You know, I understand that it's not passed in a lot of places, but I just think they should be given that opportunity to do that. Also, I would like to recommend something, and if y'all have time to look at it, I think the bridge going over 2nd Street should be lit up like the rest of the bridge as a gateway to the cultural district of our city. I'd like to see the tankers or whatever those things are that the grain people have built there. And there's 2 blue ones on out by the distillery. What are they? The big hoppers or grain to be labeled with our banjo and those types of things. I don't know if you've come in on I-65 in Bowling Green and seen the pinless block. Welcome to Bowling Green. I'd like to see us invest in those in all the 4 corners of our community. And I'd like to see the Museum of Science and History power washed, painted, use the flagpole that's there. The windows on 3rd Street, you know, get something done. And the River Park Center, I'd like to see some things done there. And on the heels of a statement made by one of the city commissioners in February, in regards to the misconduct, the mistreatment of citizens across the country by our police. I did some research and I saw that the police in 2022, there'd been 350 police officers shot and 60,000 police officers assaulted. And that's just to record, you know. And I think that that we need to give them whatever they need to help protect us and invest in our resource officers in our schools with any money that we have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Tidwell is sneaking up to the podium.
I am.
Help him, Josh.
Thank you. Jim Tidwell, representing Owensboro Health tonight. Pleasant Valley, Breckenridge, or Mayfair. Take your pick there. And I came tonight to just express both my personal and our organization's gratitude to each of the commissioners. At our last meeting, you unanimously voted to protect a city ordinance against indoor smoking. I like a definition of culture that says that the strength of a culture is it can be defined by the way a group of individuals will collectively protect a shared value. And in your unanimous vote, you demonstrated the kind of culture that that has made me a citizen of Owensboro, and will keep me here indefinitely. To use a word y'all used at our last meeting, but thank you. I don't believe that the amendment is really about any organization, gambling or no. I just we have an ordinance in place that that is a strong stand against smoking, and that is the absolute greatest health concern in our nation, and in the world, perhaps next to clean water in the world. But thank you all very much for your stance last meeting.
You're very welcome. It's not often we get somebody to come back and thank us for doing something right, is it? We appreciate you, Dr. Tidwell. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Andy Gamblin, 2920 Yale Place. My heart is heavy. Of course, what's going on down at the River Park Center. Like I've said before, the Lord, He instituted government. He put y'all in place to watch over our city, watch over the people. A couple years ago, y'all voted to allow alcohol, the sales of it, for going around with a cup Saturday and even into Sunday, the Lord's Day. Y'all have let the mall go downhill. Y'all knew what was going on. And now they're bringing in a betting parlor. More corruption, more sin. Y'all allowing the drag queen to go on. Y'all supporting wokeism. Even country music has gone to wokeism. CMT the other night. I seen it on my phone earlier today. It's time y'all take a stand for the right things. You know, we're going to be celebrating Easter. When Jesus was hanging on the cross, He said, my God, why have you forsaken me? God turned, not turn on His Son, but He could not condone sin. Jesus loves everybody, but He does not condone sin. He never will. I'm praying that you all will do the right thing and stop this funding down at the River Park Center. Y'all can do it. Tennessee just did it. And it's not an uphill battle. It's time we as Christians take a stand. LGBTQ is behind all this. They're going into every county, and they're going to every school. This wokeism, that's why we got a shortage in teachers right now, because they're either having to give in or either walk away. And a lot of them saying, no, we cannot do this because it's against the Bible. They saying they can tell the kids if they want to dress up as an animal, or if they want to say they're a boy or a girl can be a little boy, then you don't have to tell your parents. That's wrong. It's time we wake up. Please, I'm asking y'all, please wake up. Stop the funding. Simple.
Anyone else?
Charles Hayden, 1751 Pawnee Place. I want to tell you a story. It may or may not be true, but I was sitting at 4th and Frederica at a red light in the right-hand lane going east. I saw a little dude run out between the cars and start waving at the traffic. Now this traffic was going north, making a right-hand turn on to 4th Street off of Frederica. Little dude waved his hand. All the cars quit coming. The traffic cleared the intersection. All the traffic going south turned left and went up 4th Street. And the little dude sat there and waved and waved and waved, and nobody stopped. When the light turned green, I took off, but I took off slowly because I was afraid the little kid was going to run out between the cars and I might hit him. Well, I didn't hit him, he hit me. He threw a brick. I stopped, got out of my truck, run around to get the kid, and there laid his grandmother on the sidewalk. She'd fallen out of her wheelchair. And this little dude wasn't big enough to get her back up and get her back in her wheelchair. So I helped him. After they got her in a wheelchair, got her thing straightened out, I said, "Little boy, why'd you throw that brick at me for?" He said, "Mister, when people who are supposed to be godly don't stop and show mercy and compassion, you have to throw bricks." Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Could I have a second, please? Second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned.